baby care, agriculture, care of cattle, so forth and so on, because all of those things bring to light love. Every time they bring to these people a knowledge of how to care for their babies or their cattle or their crops, they are developing a love for those of us who have made it possible for them to get it. And that's what's going on in the world today. It's the same with I'm speaking before the war, the great church missionaries that went to China. Most of them weren't half as busy trying to preach religion as they were setting up medical missionaries and medical colleges and medical hospitals for the care of the people over there. So I've had opportunity in my travels to see that man's inhumanity to man is fast dying out, that the brotherhood of man is being rapidly established in the hearts and consciousnesses of men. It just hasn't seeped through yet to that high level that we call the big brass. They're still up there playing their own game in their own way for their selfish motives, and they naturally will be the last to go. But don't be fooled by appearances. The 75 years of metaphysics, of spiritual teachings that have come into human consciousness is a leavening force, and it is making us aware of each other and of the spiritual tie that binds us to each other. Never think for a moment that the truth teachings, even though they may have been confined to a Christian Science church, a unity church, a church of truth, or other organization, that truth teaching has been limited to those small organizations. Oh no, this truth literature is in homes of people who have never been in a truth center. This truth literature is in the homes of people who wouldn't know where to find a truth center. I find people reading Emmett Fox on the train that don't even know that he has a church in New York. Just think of him as a philosopher telling him something about life. And not only these church movements have done it, not only these teachings, but never forget this, that little book, The Prophet of Gibran, is probably in its 500,000th copy. And it has no church teaching, no church affiliation, but no one could ever read it without having a love of God and a love of man. And he'd never think of color, race, or creed if he were reading Gibran. The same way I think that the Letters to Strongheart of J. Allen Boone are in something like their 17th or 27th edition, 10,000 to an edition. And there's a book carrying a message, no religion, no philosophy, just the love of God, the love of man, and the love of animals, all brought down to a language that we can all understand that will make us love each other more. Oh no, the world is filled today with such literature. Let us take Men Who Have Walked with God by Cheney. Let us take Perennial Philosophy by Aldous Huxley. Let us take The Search for God and the End of the Search by Marquette Chute. And what do you find in all those books? No church at all. Not a bit of church, not a bit of organization, but you find a leavening influence revealing to us the universality of God in all of the teachings of all of the ages. And that's a leavening thought. It couldn't be in the world with millions of copies sold and not be doing something in the consciousness of those who read them. So don't judge by appearances. Don't you worry about these headlines. They only indicate hate, animosity, and animality among the leaders of people. And as this love on the lower level, and I mean just lower level in terms of political high or low, as this leaven of love is circulating on our level of consciousness, it's seeping higher and higher and higher until ultimately it will exterminate those who cannot come into their oneness with good. And all of that comes back to the opening statement. It is the activity of truth in consciousness that performs our miracles. It is this activity of truth that you and I are holding in our consciousness and working with in our consciousness that not only produces the miracles for us, but for our neighbors, for our families, for our communities, ultimately for the world at large. Of course, it all has to begin on an individual level. That's why I said this morning, don't talk these things over with anyone. First demonstrate them. Let the fruitage come forth in your own experience so that somebody near you will say, I want some of that. Where do you buy it? Does it come by the pound or quart? And they'll want it. But they'll want it not by hearing you talk about it, but by seeing the fruitage of it in your experience. And it is in that wise that we circle the world with this message of the activity of Christ. Now remember this. Here's an important point. The infinite way has no organization, not even a corporation. The infinite way has no officers. It has no teachers or practitioners or anybody else who's authorized. It hasn't anybody. There are some people out in the world teaching it, and there are some out in the world doing healing work through it, but they are merely those who have found what they were seeking in the message, found themselves with a capacity to heal or teach, and decided to go out and do it. Some of them didn't even ask my permission. Some did. But whether they did or whether they didn't is of no importance, because I can't give them any permission and I can't withhold any permission, because I have no organization and I have no authority. None whatsoever. I couldn't stop anyone from doing what they want with it, and I couldn't ask anyone to do it. I couldn't empower them. I have no more power to authorize than you have. None. I have no legal entity whatsoever. Now then, why is this so? Well, because it is my fervent hope and prayer that there never will be an infinite way organization. Not even, as one of our students wanted to say, an unorganized organization. No. I want no organization for this reason. The meaning of the term the infinite way, or message of the infinite way, is this. It's merely my recognition of the activity of the activity of Christ in individual experience, or the activity of truth in individual consciousness, produces miracles for us. Now, that's no secret of mine. That's no discovery of mine. That's no system of mine. That has nothing to do with me. And the minute you would try to put this in an organization and say it's exclusive, you would wreck it. Because if there's anything in the world that isn't exclusive, it's the activity of the Christ in individual consciousness. Believe me, it belongs to Jew and Gentile. It belongs to white and black. It belongs to Mohammedan or whatnot. Because the activity of the Christ, the activity of truth in individual consciousness, knows no such thing as person, color, race, or creed. It's that which has functioned. Well, Jesus himself said, before Abraham was, I am. Abraham, you remember, was the father of the Hebrew race. So before there was a Hebrew race, there was Christ operating in human consciousness. And he also said, lo, I am with you to the end of the world. So even if the Christian church went out of existence, that wouldn't stop the activity of Christ in individual consciousness. And that is my understanding of the meaning of the infinite way. It's merely a teaching that says that the activity of the Christ in your consciousness, the activity of truth in your consciousness, will produce miracles. Now, how you bring about that activity of Christ in your consciousness, how you make that transition, that will differ with each one. I, in my books, merely give you the benefit of my experience and the experience of my students and my patients who have come within range of me. But that doesn't mean that there aren't 1,000 other ways of attaining it. I haven't delved into all the ways there are of attaining the Christ. Each one must do that by themselves. I know that reading truth, studying truth, reading Scripture, studying Scripture, meditating will do it, but perhaps you can find 7,000 other ways that will do it too. Therefore, if I were to try to incorporate or make an organization and say this is the way to do it, I would also be saying this is not the way to do it. And I don't believe in that. I don't believe in telling you to get down on your knees or not get down on your knees. Because personally, if standing on your head will do it for you, that's as good a way as any other. And some people have achieved it that way, or lying flat on nails. Any way that suits you suits me. All I'm bringing to your attention is this. And in a measure, I'm helping you to it through my own consciousness. The activity of Christ in individual consciousness will perform miracles, not merely for you, but for this entire world. Therefore, our lives must be dedicated to the principle of making truth or Christ active in our consciousness and keeping truth, Christ, active in our consciousness for ourselves, for our families, our communities, and for the world. I suppose there ought to be time to meditate, oughtn't it? Almost time to go home, too, huh?